Okay, so today on the choir community website, we are having a little chat one-to-one with Lea Morris, who's one of our newest arrangers who we're very excited about having as part of the team. And she's going to tell us a little bit more about herself. And I wanted to start by just saying welcome and how excited we are about your music. And we just love the music you do, and it's great. And I just wanted to ask you about if you could remember what your first ever musical experience was, something that you woke up and went, oh, or you felt something musical
Yeah.
in your life.
I have a visual of it, and I know it was so early that someone must have told me, but I feel like it's a memory and not a gifted memory from my mother or something. But I would have been three-ish, really little, singing in church. And certainly there was a lot of singing in church in my youth. But I remembered singing this song, Sweet, Sweet Spirit, in church. And I remember everyone laughing and feeling kind of offended that they were laughing at me, but also feeling good about being able to sing, being able to stand in front of everyone and share this thing. And the idea of being blessed with a gift from God was a concept that was part of my youth as well. So whatever those gifts are, each of us has one. And I was just taught very early that the voice was one of mine.
I was going to ask you about that as another question, really. It was when you realized the power of your voice and that actually that sort of talent, or whatever we call it, when you was it the same sort of time, or as you grew up, or you suddenly realized that the voice was something that had an amazing amount of power in some way? I'm not sure if power is the right word. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting word. It's an interesting word that's been co-opted.
Mm.
So it's like feels a little fancy, risky to use it, but a voice is a powerful thing. And each of us who's able to speak or to sing has great, great power, just with the spoken word. And then of course the sung word. And then I think it was St. Augustine who said those who sing, pray twice. And I'm not sure why, like it feels like for some reason religion, theology, and all that is kind of just coming into the conversation, but that's like my roots. So
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to have to write that down. Those who sing pray twice is absolutely exquisite. I've not heard that before, and I think I need to get it on a t-shirt. But I do think those of us who went through the church and sung in a church situation, and interestingly, Aled was a chapel boy who I interviewed this morning, and I think if you have the gift and you are put in that situation, when was the first time that you really got a sense of harmony, vocal harmony? When do you think that happened?
I was raised on that too. My mom's side of the family, her dad raised all of her siblings, and there were seven of them, as the Jones family gospel singers. So they were Jones kids, and they all sang a cappella harmonies and toured up and down the eastern coast of the United States singing these old gospel tunes. And I was the only kid of my generation who took to it. So they kind of put me out there like their little gospel Michael Jackson.
And how was that for you? So you were much younger than all the others then.
Right?
That's amazing, because again, I'm going back to Aled, because Aled used to go to the rehearsals for the male voice choir that his dad was in, and he just got completely like drenched in harmony when he was attending, just sitting in the rehearsals. And he joined the choir when he was 13, and he was the only child in the choir, and it feels a bit like that,
Yeah.
like that happened to you as
Yeah.
well. But it's amazing, I think, when you're young, how you can just take it all in, drink it, and almost like you knew it already or something. Was that feeling that somehow
It feels that way, similar to the way we learn language. Victor Wooten's book is called, what is it? The Music Lesson. And he talks about how we learn language is similar to the way we learn music, ideally anyway. Many of us learn by rote and CD and all that. But ideal situation, we learn it by immersion. We learn by being surrounded by masters, people who have mastered the English, for example, teach the children not by teaching, simply by being masters. And those were my first experiences with music, being
Yeah.
around master harmony singers. So it's just a language that I speak.
And I do believe that, and I've said this before, I repeat myself quite a lot, but there's a whole issue when kids get to school at the age of 5, and some have been immersed in another language or in singing or in something, and they're eloquent, they're at 5. But if they haven't, and they've had no singing, and what happened in this country for a long time was that they just went, okay, you can't sing, you can sing.
Yeah.
And then those people who thought they couldn't sing spent their entire life, I would say, with a broken heart, because they never got the opportunity to do that thing. And that immersion from, I always wanted to be able to speak 2 languages, and I had friends who could, because they started at birth with French and English or something. But I think I'm quite glad I had singing as a thing. I'm sure you too. So how did your journey come about compositionally wise? How did you start writing? Did you write songs or make up songs, or how did it go with the composition stuff?
Sure. When I was a kid, my mother would sing little ditties. She'd make up little things to kind of motivate us, get your shoes on, let's get out the door, that kind of thing. And so it was there. That's another language I think I was gifted as a kid. And when I was 13, I started to play the acoustic guitar. And I decided that the method I would use to teach myself was to learn a new chord and then write a song around it. So if I had learned how to play a G major and a C major, I'd figure out how to transition back and forth and then write a melody that would, carry that, and then write some lyrics that would fit the melody. And that's just been pretty much my go-to method, unless I have a very specific commission, a theme that I'm writing to. I usually will, play around with the music and concepts and then have lyrics that pin down whatever the musical idea is.
Well, it sounds like you've got a book there just for kids, get your shoes on. And that sounds like another project for you, Lea. Definitely. But that's a lovely way. So actually, it's just like playing, isn't it? It's like improvising, just making up stuff. And I do believe that composition really is, in its purest form, it's just improvising. It's just playing and making stuff up. And, you just keep playing until something sticks. And I think that's really beautiful. So, so you've been doing that since you were really young, and did you find yourself with a style quite early on? Did you feel that you had something or did you go different areas, and how do you like to do this?
Well, I know when I was a kid, my dad would say I was picking and grinning, and I don't know if that means anything to you.
But have to explain that to me. It sounds good though. I'm not sure. Was it a compliment?
No, not coming from that source.
Okay.
Than from someone else. My dad was a soul musician, kind of, James Brown, Earth, Wind and Fire, that whole thing. And so what I gravitated toward was more bluegrass, like old Americana, like boom ding boom ding. If I had an instrument, I'd show you what I mean. But yeah, and I don't know how or why, because I wasn't really exposed to any music of that style until I went looking for it later. But that's just that Americana, that really rootsy stuff is what I first feel like, called to me from wherever. And then I had a teacher put some bossa nova in my hands. And from there, it was just like, what can I draw from? Oh, wow. Yeah.
And what's if you were going to choose a musical heroine hero, who would the bunch be? There can't be one. There's never one, is there? But who would you have on your list? Your dinner party. Who's going to come?
That shit all the time, but right now I'm thinking about Bonnie Raitt.
Oh,
yeah.
I have got such a good Bonnie Raitt story. I have to tell, even though it's your interview, I'm going to share it. Right. My mother, rest her soul, never really liked my voice all the way through my life. And even just before she died, she was like, have you thought of having some more singing lessons, Gitika? And I'm like, anyway, once in the car, she was driving, and I put a CD in, and it was Bonnie Raitt. And she went, is this you? Well, I thought that was like the biggest compliment she could ever pay me.
Yeah.
But, anyway, Bonnie Raitt. Oh my God, what a woman! What a woman!
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes,
mean,
indeed.
so many. I mean, her skills. And I went to see her once, and it felt like she was performing in her front room, and there were 2,000 people in the audience.
Yeah, that's just it. There's this smoothness, this ease
So
about
relaxed,
her.
so
Yeah.
just so at home with her instrument, isn't she? And her,
All of her.
yes,
Yeah.
really ground Scorpio. Really, she's just very grounded and yeah, very special. Yeah. What do you any others that spring to mind?
Oh, plenty others. I mean, the big names who we all love and adore: Stevie Wonder, Paul Simon. Those are some writers who I just adore their stuff, but so does everybody.
Well,
Um,
you'd think, yeah, absolutely. Have
yeah.
you got any good? Have you been? Did you see Stevie live? Have you seen Stevie live a lot?
Haven't seen any of those folks live yet.
I saw him once about 10 years ago, and I was right at the back, the cheapest seat you could possibly have in the O2, so far back. And at one point, because I can sing really loud, at one point I just sung this note really loud and really long. So it went on, and I am convinced he turned around and went like this. And then the next day I wondered why I couldn't sing or anything. I had no voice left, but it was just amazing.
You'd
And
spent you'd spent it very well, I think.
yeah, and he sung every song I wanted in the right order. You know, I'd be like, "You've
Mm,
got to do this one next. You've got to do this one next," and he did. I was like, yeah, I was
really.
like, oh. That was really good. So what other questions for you? So at the moment, how do you spend your time? How much time are you doing running workshops or creating music? Because I wouldn't say, unlike a lot of our arrangers, well, you are an arranger, but you're arranging your own music. I mean, that's the thing. You are foremost, I would say, would you call yourself a composer?
Initially, I was writing, composing chants. I was when I returned to this style of composition from, and I'm not sure if I made it clear, I for 30 years, I considered myself singer-songwriter, guitar, vocal, and that was my thing musically. Like
Right.
that's what got a lot of comparisons to Joni Mitchell and Tracy Chapman. That was what I was doing. And then during the lockdown, my typical gigs, like everyone else, weren't available. And so I was able to return to music with this freshness, right? To like really tear down those walls and concepts that I'd structured for decades. And just say, okay, so what's mine musically now? Like what serves my soul and my spirit?
Mm.
And one of the first things I returned to were simple messages encrypted into melody, like those prayers that really was like, and that might be evident in the themes that I gravitate to, because it was really like prayers to keep myself grounded, to keep myself hopeful, happy, all the things that I want to be and experience. And so, to call those compositions almost doesn't, I think one might think of compositions as starting on the page or,
Yeah, I know.
firing a
Yeah.
thought, that kind of thing. And they really were prayers. They continue to be like just me getting my mind
Mm.
deliberate choices about how I'm going to use my energy and my emotion and that thing. So yeah, and that's really only been the last 4 years for me that I returned to that way of musicking.
Musicking, I love that too. Christopher Small, he was an amazing guy. He wrote a book called Musicking. I love that. I love the idea of calling them prayers. I know what you mean about composition and the word, the label. It just seems not quite right, even though you're making up stuff, you're creating stuff. It's new. But there is something about something that was on the website about that there is a timeless quality about what you do, and that they've not like they've always been there, but I wonder where they come from. Do you spend a lot of time meditating or just being in a space, or do they just pop up, or do you read a lot? Do you get a lot of inspiration from where do you get your inspiration from?
Yes, to Yes. I do it regularly, and I walk mostly. The songs that I've shared um, are songs that will be born during walks. You
Nice.
know, a question or some sort of a challenge, and just be open, consciously open to receiving some guidance,
Mm.
and then it will come in song form, or maybe in word form, and then I'll know that a melody will help me to internalize it even
Mm.
more.
That's beautiful. And do you carry like a little thing around, or do you just do you, I don't know, or do you
Yeah,
just
um,
and I love the concept of the prayer, and I love the concept that what you're doing is something that's giving you strength, and also other people singing it, it gives them strength as well, or and I think at this time that is such an important thing. It's such an important thing that that you can do that, and it's such a it's such a gift to be able to share. Is not the right word. I'm having a menopausal moment, but and it's like an empowerment, isn't it? It's all like, it's like giving other people a voice. Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it? It's like giving other people a voice through them being able to sing your words. And they talk about poets like that. The poets write what we want to say, and sometimes
mhm.
we're just not good enough or clear enough, and then someone will say something, and we'll go, yeah, that's what I meant. That's what I wanted. So it's almost like being a vehicle, somehow a
Yes.
communication vehicle for saying things that really will give people strength and
Yeah.
courage, or yeah. And I love the prayer. I think it's more than a prayer.
Well,
And
I think it's prayer is another word. We started off talking about power, prayer,
mm,
and all so many like spiritual esoteric concepts have been co-opted by a specific group or specific direction that might not be what you or I would
mm,
ascribe.
mm,
But something that has been really empowering for me in the last 10-ish years has been, with the baby in the bathwater concept, holding on to the scriptures even, and the ideas that still serve me, and letting go of the ones that aren't for me anymore. So like a prayer for me isn't directed at some celestial being who's somewhere else, and not that whole thing that I was taught as a kid, but it really is about like choosing what software I want to run. That's like some different language, but it's the same thing. It's like what's my underlying belief system, my fundamental way of being in the world that's going to show up through everything I do. I can sing that, I can sing that on repeat, or when I need it, or when I don't need it, so that I have it when I need it. And that's what prayer means.
yeah. And for me, prayer was always about gratitude. I mean, attitude of gratitude. I hate that, but it's like it was asking for things, but it was actually just being grateful. And
Yeah.
so easily forget that concept of being grateful. It's so easily forget, because there's always
Yeah.
something. There's always something, even in the darkest moments. There's something to be grateful for. Really.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and just trying to think. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And I'm still slightly reeling over those who sing "Pray Twice," and I will get the t-shirt. Is
I
oh, sorry.
Go on, go on.
No, I was going to stop at that point and say nothing and let you speak about at the moment, because we just started to talk about what you're doing, and you're writing and arranging. You're doing many workshops. Are you doing?
Many isn't the word I'd use right now. So about a year ago, really interesting. Um, Maybe a little timeline of my community music experience. As I mentioned, in 2020, I started really composing these brief songs, especially these little chants, and arranging them. And I started sharing them because they were serving me. And I just, YouTube was there and it was a thing. So I figured if this is useful to me, it's going to be useful to at least one other person. And from there, I met Fran Andre, who
Mhm.
invited me into the Natural Voice Network community. And a friend in Maryland, where I'm from, named Elizabeth Melvin, also invited me to the Ubuntu network in Canada. And so I started to meet people who were already making this kind of music. Really interesting thing, because I wasn't aware that the community music, that was a thing that was happening. I knew of choirs as happening in churches, and I didn't know that people were just getting together to sing. My experience with music was the folk scene and choirs, a church choir. So it was like, whoa, this is happening. And of course, it was during the lockdown, but people were still singing, wanting to sing. And so showing up on Zooms, and it was an opportunity. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I first started teaching these chants and looping, like so many of us have been doing since then. And then the walls came down, and it was like, hey, why don't you come and do this in person? And I said, well, gee, I don't know how, because I've never done that. But thankfully, I accepted the invitation, shaking in my boots, like so feeling like massive imposter syndrome. And my recollection is that the first time I was invited to really share songs in person was for the Black Lives Commissioning Project.
Yeah.
And it was Dr. Kathy Bullock and Arne Batson and Una. I mean, like, to me, these massive stars, these amazing presences in this community, and Melanie Demore and Jennifer John. And I was like, who am I? Who I know, like, how? So I went and felt very small and learned a lot, and was so warmly received by the Natural Voice Network and by the other composers. And probably spent another year or so feeling like a massive imposter. And then I started a choir here in Braunschweig, which is just up the street from where I'm living, and failed miserably the first time. I came in with arrangements that nobody there was, like trying to teach stuff that people just, it was outside of their, it didn't work. It didn't work. Why it didn't. And then I showed up again the next week, and other folks showed up, and some didn't come back. But eventually, it's gotten to a routine, and now it's totally bizarre. A couple of weeks ago, I did an event with my choir, and 200 people, which for some may not be a big deal, but for me it was a massive deal.
Huge. Yeah.
Leading songs and getting people enthusiastic about singing. And it's just one of those things, like, for anybody who's listening to this, if your heart feels cold and you feel like it's a yes, even though you're not there now, keep walking, one foot in front of the other, keep moving forward, because one day you'll look up and go, ha, this is me. This has been me all along. I just needed to allow it to unfold.
That's really good advice. And it's so lovely to hear. You felt the fear and you did it anyway. And your songs, oh my God, they're those from that collection are absolutely stunning, stunning. And they have a life and a brightness, and they really stood out for me. And when you applied for the Choir Community Rangers, we were like, yeah, we were so excited, having heard some of your stuff already. So, and it is that thing, isn't it, that it's about sometimes the journey. I think when we're older women, the journey's a bit like, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on with being a little bit more mature and making choices, but it's like that whole thing about, you can be just under the horizon at any point in your life. You can blossom and bloom at any point in your life. And I think that's a really important message for anyone, really, is that, like you said, exactly what you said, if you're feeling it, if you're feeling the compunction, the desire to do it, just do it, isn't it? And it's one foot in front of the other, one song, one workshop, one, before you know it, there you are, just with a massive choir and loads of arrangements all over the place, and doing incredible work. So yeah, I it's just fantastic.
Well, I'm thinking to give a shout out, as they say, to my young. I've got 3 kids who are now, as of air date or as of recording, 8, 14, and 24.
Wow.
And yes, and they are lovely to sing with, lovely singers. My little one actually took 4 years to be able to match pitch, and it was a wonderful gift to be able to say, you know what, it's fine. I love you, you're brilliant, and I want you to sing anyway. And eventually she, and I think that maybe, a lesson, kind of going back to what you were talking about, how so many people I am meeting so many adults who at some point were told either lip sync in the choir or don't come back to the choir. It's children. It's like 6 and 7 year old kids. And so that was their software for the rest of their lives until recently. You can't sing. You can't sing. What?
I know. I
I
know.
can't even imagine a life without singing,
I,
like being in a room are singing. My mother-in-law is a person, and so far I haven't heard her be able to match pitch, but I'm sure it's because at some point somebody told her to stop trying.
mm,
And to sit in a room with people singing happy birthday and to feel like you can't, that
mm.
is just like, so I am grateful to be in a position to tell the people around me, to gather people and say, yes, you can.
Yeah,
You better.
absolutely. There is a whole thing. I did an MA in choral education, and one of the things is there's a thing called the singing vocal continuum. And when you start to sing, you sing on a monotone. That's how it works. And then you just start to follow the pitch a bit, and then you're about a minor third below it. And then at some point you will be able to follow the pitch. And people said, oh, I need to get singing lessons. And I say, no, don't get singing lessons. Go and sing with some people, because that's when
Mhm.
you work out how to do it. It's like being a choir, sing on one note. And I used to love children's choirs where you'd have 3 or 4 grunters who just grunt. And I'd just be like, everyone's welcome here, we're great. And then suddenly after about a term, the grunting would go. And then
Yeah.
new grunters would come in. But, it's like just being there and being immersed in it, like you say, just it's the thing, it's what you have to do. And so anyone there who's not singing, you have, it's like immerse yourself in singing, find a safe place where you can go and sing all on one note. And that's what we have to do. And I feel like that's part of my work. I'm sure it's part of your work, is just embracing everyone's voice, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really important.
And that being said, I will also say how magnificent it was to spend a week with women singing in Scotland with all of those strong singers. I had forgotten what that was like.
Uh, it's a
So sad.
it's a good old event that I used to go years ago, and it was just so splendid to just, and that's lovely, isn't it, when you're in a room full of people who will sing. I remember going to one of those events years and years and years ago. And actually, it's an interesting story from Aled about all his rugby players in Wales, just ordinary people who will go to a pub and sing in 3-part harmony. They're just
Yeah.
ordinary lads, because
Yeah.
that's their life and that's what they do, and it's just part of life, harmony singing. And it's the same. I went to a pub with about 100 people. I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And they just started singing cover, little pop songs, and everyone just burst into harmony. It was just like, and that is old style, isn't it? That's like something we need to come back. We need more of that. We need more of it, because it's just so good for the soul as well. I mean, really. So it's people come to choirs, and they're just, it's just like, yeah, it's better than drugs, they say. It really is something very, isn't it? Yeah. Well,
Good soul is going to be good for the soul of the community, right? It's going to be good for the soul of the nation. It's going to be good for the soul of the species and for the planet. It's like, so it's really important work. I'm realizing that more and more. The more, every time someone comes up to me and goes, I'm so happy, like it's something they hadn't experienced in 20 years.
yeah.
I realize, oh my
Mm.
goodness, this is
And I
really
think that
good.
is a really important thing, because it's easy to do it and get tired, and people come up to you and go, "Oh, this is great," and you're like, "Bake me a cake." I'm not getting any of that. And to remind yourself that it's like healing. It's like being a healer, or,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really important work. But you just have to make sure you heal yourself as well in between.
Yeah,
You do get enough, because it is quite a,
yeah,
putting out all that energy for other people is quite, it can be quite tiring, and quite, so it's just like making sure to go back to the self, isn't it?
yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute joy, and I'm going to turn the record button off in a minute, and then I might just talk to you on my, and how lovely it's been to talk to you, and I really thank you for
Yeah.
doing this, and hope we'll get to talk soon. And I'm not going anywhere, but thank you so much, Lea. It's been
Thank
really
you.